Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. It's been 721 days since I last heard another human voice that wasn't my own. Not through static, not from behind a sealed door. Real voice, the kind with warmth, the kind that doesn't echo off cement. I don't remember their face. I try to. At night sometimes, I force myself to focus, close my eyes, trace the features in my mind. But all that's left are smudges, like someone wiped the memory with a damp rag. Maybe it's the exposure, the protein load, or maybe the mind just gives up on what it knows it won't see again. Before the outbreak, I used to lecture on neural degradation and viral erosion of short-term memory. I used words like plasticity and cognitive trauma. I thought I understood isolation, but nothing in the textbooks prepared us for a world where skyscrapers were graves and cities spoke only in wind. Now it's just me. Me, the infected I keep restrained 2 floors below, and Tachyon. She's curled near the solar inverter, one paw twitching as she sleeps, ears flicking at phantom sounds. I envy her sometimes. Her simplicity, her constancy. She doesn't ask why the world ended. She just adapts. The only other heartbeat left in this wing of the hospital, and maybe the only one that still trusts mine. Outside, the sun has crept high enough to flash across the rusted helipad. That means the grid is catching light again. Another day begins, if you can still call these days. The calendar died with the last broadcast. Time now is just survival in increments. 1 breath, 1 hour, 1 mutation at a time. I wait for the sunlight to angle through the window just right, bright enough to bounce off the emergency beacon mirror mounted on the western roof. The reflection cuts a clean line through the courtyard below, washing the cracked pavement in ultraviolet. I've timed it for the past 700 mornings. It works better than fencing. The infected won't cross a path they can't see through. Generator kicks on with a low, familiar whine. Same noise every morning. There's comfort in predictability. The hum gives the illusion of routine, of structure. I head downstairs to check the restraints on subject 0461. Still there, still breathing. Its upper spine has arched further overnight, stretching its neck at an unnatural angle as if trying to smell something on the ceiling. The smell coming off it is acidic, like spoiled meat left in ammonia. I record notes aloud, out of habit more than necessity. Subject remains blind, photosensitive behavior consistent with prior E-class mutations. Limb coordination is deteriorating, but cranial armor appears to be thickening. Cranial swell measured at just under 1 inch from baseline over the past 72 hours. It thrashes suddenly when I move near the table, reacting to pressure changes, or maybe the sound of my breath. These variants don't use sight, but they're aware of sound, pressure, heat, like sharks in the dark. No vocal cords left, but it clicks its teeth in rhythmic bursts, like sonar. I've heard them do it in the alleys at night, echolocating off shattered walls. I administer the latest dosage of compound B32. It jerks once, convulses, then slumps. Good. I'll have a window of maybe 5 hours before it recovers. Tachyon watches from the doorway, not growling, just alert. She doesn't like the way it moves. Neither do I. Back in the control room, I scan the shortwave frequencies. All of them, no voices, not even looped government broadcasts anymore. Just the hiss and pop of static. I speak into the transmitter anyway. This is Lieutenant Wei Jiang, U.S. Army Biomedical Threat Unit, operating out of St. Raphael's Medical Annex, Sector 4, immune subject in possession, experimental protocols in progress. If you are alive, respond on frequency 7.850 MHz. Repeat. This is Jiang. Location secure for short-term shelter. If you can hear this, answer. I sit in silence, one hand still resting on the mic. But there's nothing waiting on the other end. There never is. Still, I check the antenna relay. Still aligned. Still functional. The mirror on the roof still flashes on a cycle, a crude but effective signal against the skyline. New York looks like it drowned, and no one bothered to dry it off. Towering buildings sag inward, Steel rebar pokes through skeletal floors. The windows, what's left of them, glint under layers of dust and ash, reflections of a city that isn't there anymore. Below, the streets are quiet. Not empty, just quiet. There's always something down there, lurking, moving, shambling. I have motion-triggered cameras covering a 2-block radius, infrared and UV sensitive. Most nights I can count 8 to 12 heat signatures within 100 yards. Sometimes they crawl, sometimes they just stand there, heads tilted like they're listening for something I can't hear. The only thing keeping this place safe is the 3rd floor UV grid I rigged with surgical lamps and high-wattage mercury bulbs. Timed relays, battery-backed. If one blows, I replace it by sundown, every single time. Around noon, I take blood from Tachyon. She doesn't flinch when the needle goes in. Good dog. She's the only confirmed immune subject I've found since the city fell. Her blood neutralizes the virus in vitro, completely. I've tested it on multiple strains. The antibodies are aggressive, fast-acting, but too unstable for synthesis. Every time I try to extract them, they degrade outside her body within minutes. I've tried plasmid vectors, protein-binding agents, synthetic envelopes. Nothing works, and I'm running out of samples. After that, I prep a new tissue batch in the lab, human muscle, preserved from the first month after outbreak, still viable for cellular testing. I mix Tachyon's blood into a neutral substrate and inject it into the culture. It clumps instantly, good sign. But then, no reaction. Viral decay doesn't occur this time. I swear under my breath. Not profanity, just habit. I wipe down the tray, incinerate the sample, and log the result in a notebook I stopped believing in 3 months ago. Still, it's all I have to mark time. At 4:32 p.m., the outer stairwell camera triggers. Movement near the northern entrance. I watch through the side monitor. One figure, human silhouette, slouched posture. Could be a straggler or a floater drawn by the UV pulses. But it stops, looks up, stares directly at the camera. That's not normal behavior. I zoom in. Male, late 50s, maybe older. Wearing a dark green utility jumpsuit. City sanitation logo still visible across the chest. No visible bleeding, no twitching, no fungal bloom. He raises one hand slowly, open palm. I move fast, descending 2 levels to the airlock checkpoint. I keep my weapon lowered but ready just in case. Tachyon presses against the opposite door, hackles up. When I crack open the seal, the man steps back. He's breathing hard but steady. "You the one broadcasting?" he asks. His voice is rough, thirsty, real. I scan him. Surface exposure clear, eyes still human, skin tone consistent, no lesions. Still, I hesitate. "How long since you were last scratched, bitten, or exposed to fluids?" I ask. "Never," he replies. "I don't go near them. Stay below ground mostly." I press a hand scanner to his wrist. No spike. Then a deeper bio read. Blood pressure elevated but not febrile. He steps inside slowly, looking around as if stepping into a museum. "I thought this place was burned out." "It was. I rebuilt it." He chuckles once, dryly. "Well, thank heaven for old hospitals." I guide him down the hallway, past barricaded wings and locked storage. He doesn't ask many questions, just stares at the walls like they still carry echoes. When we reach the secure lab chamber, he sits heavily on a folding cot I never expected to use again. "Name?" I ask, already drawing a blood sample. "Sanders, William, worked sewers, Midtown Division, before everything." I analyze the blood under the scope. Normal color, no agglutination, no microclotting. A little elevated cortisol, but that's expected. I log him as temporarily clear. "Water's clean. You can drink," I tell him. He nods and drinks 3 cups in silence, as if they might disappear if he takes too long. "You been up here this whole time?" he asks, finally breaking the quiet. "Yes." "No one else?" "Not anymore." He doesn't follow up, just leans back and stares at the flickering UV safety light overhead. Tachyon won't go near him. She sits stiff by the door, watching, tail unmoving. It's not aggression, it's avoidance. She's never acted this way before. Something gnaws at me about that, and I don't sleep that night. At 2:48 a.m., I check the monitor again. Sanders is sitting upright on the cot, facing the camera directly. His eyes are open, his hands are still. The cot hasn't moved since midnight. I switch to thermal. His body temperature is elevated by 3 degrees. By 3:12, he starts coughing. Deep, dry, but inconsistent. I hear it echo faintly through the vent shaft above the lab. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. There's no blood. Yet. I watch him from the monitor bank, volume turned low, trying to analyze the rhythm of it. It doesn't sound viral, not like the others. Too irregular. Infected respiration develops a syncopated pattern, almost reptilian once the lung lining begins to degrade. But Sanders' breathing is shallow, unsteady, more like fatigue. It could be exhaustion or dehydration. The smile still bothers me. I saw it. He looked directly at the camera. His eyes didn't glaze or drift past like infected eyes do. No sign of ocular calcification, no orbital fluid pooling. But that smile, it was sharp, controlled, intentional. Not just someone who'd found sanctuary, someone who knew he was being watched. I leave him alone until morning, not out of mercy, out of caution. And then his cough has stopped. I log the data and prep a second scan. No fever spike, no elevated white count. Blood work unchanged. He's sitting up when I enter the chamber, legs dangling off the cot, staring at the floor like he's trying to memorize the tile pattern. I ask how he's feeling. He says, better than yesterday, but doesn't make eye contact. I ask about the cough. Dust, probably, he says. You know how the tunnels are. He's not wrong. The underground air ducts are a graveyard of mold spores, dry rot, and years of neglect. If he spent months scavenging below street level, it could just be his lungs catching up to clean air again. Still, I send a throat swab to culture. I won't take chances. I can't afford to. Tachyon still refuses to go near him. She stays by the stairwell now, eyes on him whenever he moves. I let him shower under a high-pressure decon unit. I leave a sealed pack of clean scrubs on the hook. When he finishes, he thanks me, voice hoarse but even. He eats half a ration bar and drinks more water than I expected. You ever try to leave? He asks while chewing. Get out of the city? I shake my head. Every bridge is collapsed or barricaded. I watch the river checkpoints burn from the roof. The ferry terminals are flooded. Even if I made it across, I'd be walking into ash. Or worse. He nods slow. I heard rumors about the quarantine wall. It's not a wall anymore. You saw it? I saw what was left. He doesn't ask what I mean. I appreciate that. Instead, he says, you think anyone's out there? I think people are hiding in smaller numbers, but organized zones? No, not here, not anymore. He doesn't respond right away. His eyes drift to the wall monitor, which still shows Subject 0461 secured on the lower floor. He asks, that thing ever stop moving? No, that's not human anymore. No, I say again. At 22:37 hours, I'm reviewing blood culture slides under the scope when I hear a quiet metallic clatter from upstairs. Not loud, just something that doesn't belong. I don't move right away. I flick the scope's illumination down, hold still, and listen. Tachyon lifts her head but doesn't growl. Instead, she stares toward the airlock chamber, ears tilted back. The camera feed shows Sanders lying on the cot, eyes closed. His chest rises and falls at a steady rate. Nothing in his body language suggests movement. But there it is again, another faint clink of metal on tile. I mute the interior feed and switch to thermal overlay. There, just past the access hallway, heat distortion, small, fast, moving low to the ground. I freeze the frame and enhance it. A rat. Just a rat. I exhale and lean back, but I don't relax. Something about the way Sanders lies on that cot, completely still, arms at his sides like a soldier in formation, feels rehearsed. Most survivors, even after one night indoors, curl in their sleep. They sprawl, they snore, they twitch. But Sanders is motionless. I run his blood work again, comparing both samples side by side. still clean. But Tachyon keeps watching the door. The way she's trained, she doesn't bark unless it's real. She just waits, ears pinned, legs tight, as if every cell in her body is whispering, wrong. Day 723. Rain begins at dawn, thin sheets of it, filtered through the broken skylight over the west wing. I route the downflow into storage tanks and update filtration logs. The power grid pings offline once due to wind interference, but I stabilize it within 20 minutes. At 10:04, I return to the containment room with a new vial of compound B32. Subject 0461 is still restrained, but struggling more than usual. Muscle tremors have increased. Secondary bone growth visible along the mandible. New ridge patterns near the eye sockets. I document it. Then I check the toxin exposure chart. Something's off. The sedative levels are dropping faster than they should. Half-life degradation, even under sealed containment, isn't this aggressive. Either the subject is metabolizing faster, or someone adjusted the dose. I review the logs. All entries show my credentials. But I didn't open this panel yesterday. I didn't change anything. That means one of two things. Either I'm losing track of my own memory, which has happened before, in stress loops, or I'm not the only one entering the lower chamber. I install a silent alert trap at the main stairwell. Nothing invasive, just a light pressure sensor wired to a diode. If anyone crosses it, I'll know. Sanders doesn't leave his cot all day, or so it appears. I stay in the lab, pretending to sleep while reviewing feeds on a secondary rig hidden inside the autoclave housing. The motion tracker picks up nothing, until 2:11 a.m. That's when the cot feed glitches for exactly 1 second. I replay it, frame by frame. In one frame, Sanders is lying down. In the next, he's standing upright facing the wall. Just like that, like a skipped heartbeat. He returns to bed within 6 minutes. No sign of panic. No sign of awareness that he's been seen. But the movement is too precise to be somnambulism. No hesitance. No imbalance. He knew exactly where the camera blind spots were. I isolate the footage, encrypt it, and move the file to external storage. I hide the drive inside a surgical tray beneath the cleanroom sink. I don't know why I do it. Only that instinct tells me it's necessary. In the morning, I confront him. What did you do last night? He blinks, slow. Nothing. You left your cot? He shrugs. Bathroom. I point at the camera feed. No. You moved through the hallway blind zone. You stood by the west wall. Why? His voice doesn't change. I was cold. I walked to stretch my legs. Didn't realize I had to file paperwork to pee. His sarcasm is too casual, too controlled. No spike in adrenaline. No fight or flight response. He's not afraid of me. That's when I finally understand. He's never been afraid of me. Not once since he got here. Later that evening, I find one of the surgical trays missing its latch. Nothing else. No broken glass. No blood. But one of my sample cases, case Delta 4, is gone. It contained a swab from variant C, one of the few with partial immunity to UV. In the wrong hands, it's not just dangerous. It's irreversible. I walk upstairs and find Sanders sitting calmly in the common room, watching the static on an old TV screen as if it were a fire. You were in the lab, I say. He doesn't respond. You stole a sample. He glances at me, not startled, just amused. I survived 2 years in the sewer, he says. You think I did that by luck? I raise the sidearm but don't point it at him. Not yet. What do you want? His smile is slow, almost paternal. Same thing you do. A future. Then, casually, he lifts the sleeve of his left arm. The skin is clear, healthy, but the veins beneath are wrong. Dark, almost metallic, tracing outward from a point just below the wrist, an injection site. He injected the variant C sample directly into himself. Why? I whisper. Because your cure doesn't work, he replies, but their evolution might. That's when I shoot him. Not a warning, not a hesitation. I pull the trigger and aim for the shoulder first, non-lethal, enough to drop him, give me time to restrain him and extract the sample. But he moves. Not fast, not twitchy like the infected, just deliberate, calm, as if he anticipated every step I'd take. The round punches through the wall behind him as he spins down the stairwell. I pursue. Tachyon barks, full-throated for the first time in months, and bolts after him. The stairwell echoes with metal and rubber, the clang of boots on old treads. He moves like he knows the building better than I do. I hit the third floor and catch a glimpse, his silhouette vanishing into the west maintenance wing. I fire again, this time lower. The shot misses, skips off the tile. A warning klaxon beeps from the control hub, and a secondary alert blares to life across the upper grid. Perimeter breach, western corridor. That's not possible. That door was sealed, triple bolted behind a UV panel. I reach the junction just as Sanders disappears into the emergency chute, an old maintenance tunnel I hadn't used in over a year. And then it clicks. He didn't just escape. He planned it. He knew the timing of the UV cycles, the gaps in my monitoring system, even which sectors I'd fortified less aggressively due to generator strain. He'd been mapping the facility since the moment he walked in. I double back to the control room and scan the west perimeter feeds. One camera is offline. The panel housing's been pried open, not destroyed, just enough to break the circuit. He wasn't trying to bring down the entire defense, just enough to create a hole. And the worst part, it worked. The secondary UV net near the freight elevator, dead. That grid protected the only loading bay connected to the external street tunnel. It's exposed now. A tunnel wide enough to drive a sanitation truck through. A tunnel that's mostly shaded. I check the motion sensors. They're blinking. Multiple contacts. 5 signals. Moving slow, steady. I kill the generator output to that wing. Reroute battery power to internal defenses, and deploy a vapor dispersal of magnesium chloride solution through the access vents. Not lethal, but disorienting enough to delay entry. Tachyon paces at my side, hackles raised, tail rigid. I slap a cartridge into the rifle, only 7 rounds left in the mag, no time to refill. I don't sleep that night. Dawn creeps over the skyline like a quiet apology. The city looks peaceful from up here. Clean even. Birds return for a few minutes after sunrise, just long enough to pretend that it's still alive. I scan the western corridor. No movement now. The contacts are gone, either retreated or lying in wait. I begin repairs. The camera wiring's been stripped, not severed, meaning Sanders took the time to pull the copper from the housing without damaging the frame. Precise work, deliberate, not infected behavior. This wasn't a frenzy. This was engineering. I reseal the frame, reconnect the coil, and route UV backup through the external conduit. The entire process takes 3 hours. I don't like how quiet it is while I work. No thumps, no clicking, no teeth grinding against concrete, just wind. Around midday, I spot a trail. Muddy footprints in the stairwell, where the floor usually stays clean. Sanders's boots. Distinct treads. He moved through the northern wing before he left. I follow the prints up to the roof, across the walkway between towers, and down into the adjacent structure, a decommissioned housing dorm used for post-op patients before the evacuation. It's empty now. Dust settled on everything, except one chair. That chair's been moved, fresh scrape lines on the floor. A crate beneath the vent shaft. Blood, small drops beneath the corner. I scan it. Type O. Not mine. He cut himself getting out, probably minor, but it confirms he's wounded. I check the northern fire escape. The latch has been torched with a magnesium flare. City issue, emergency only. Where would he even find one, unless he brought it with him? I descend into the alley. Carefully, slow, rifle up, Tachyon leads, her posture stiff but silent. There's no sign of him at ground level. But I notice something else. The UV reflectors I rigged to bounce sunlight off the mirrored windows. One of them is gone. The bolts were unscrewed, cleanly, the mirror taken. That means someone is harvesting gear, planning something larger than escape. I widen my search to the northern drainage route. The path curves under the Midtown overpass near the Hudson Rail split. Most of it collapsed in the first month, but a portion still holds. A concrete underpass half buried in shade. It's there I find the smell. Faint, but rising. Meat. Spoiled. Wet. mixed with something sour, like bile and iron and wet soil. Tachyon stops cold, ears forward, tail low. I crouch behind a burned-out patrol car and peer through the remaining glass. Shapes move in the shadows. Slow, twitching forms. Not frantic like the surface roamers. These ones are still, waiting. 6, 7, maybe more. I watch for 2 minutes before one lifts its head. No eyes, just socket folds. Its jaw clicks softly as it shifts. They're nesting. Not resting, nesting. Using the bridge as a daytime den. That explains the heat signature loss. I mark the coordinates, pull back. I shouldn't have come this far alone. I start to retreat, taking the long route up the slope near the west barrier. That's when I hear it. A subtle crunch. Just one, behind me. Not a creature, a boot. I pivot. Nothing there, just the ruins. A rusted lamppost bent into the gutter. A half-buried bicycle twisted around a drainage pipe. Then I see it. A mirror, mounted low to the ground, reflecting sunlight directly into the bridge hollow, disrupting the nesting zone. Not enough to kill, just enough to irritate, agitate, a trap. The creatures burst from the shadows with a sound like tearing linen. Not a roar, not a scream, just pressure, violence, movement. I fall backward, fire twice. First shot drops one. Second hits another in the leg. Doesn't stop them. They move on all fours now, faster than I've seen before. Rib cages distended, skin sloughing off like wet paper. Tachyon bolts left, barking to draw them. Brave, stupid dog. I follow, cutting across the slope toward the old trolley lot. The terrain slows them, but not enough. One lands close, too close. I fire again, miss, then jab the barrel into its mouth and pull the trigger. The sound is muffled, wet. It folds backward, body spasming. 3 still chase. I reach the floodgate and slam the lever down. UV floodlights burst to life. Old, sputtering, but enough. They recoil. One catches fire. Another convulses in the threshold, twitching as light scorches its flesh. The last one skitters away into the ruins. I drop to one knee, gasping, not speaking. Tachyon limps over, blood on her flank. Superficial, I hope. I don't move for several minutes. I sit there beside her in the oily mud at the edge of the rail split, my weapon resting against my thigh, her head on my lap. The blood isn't arterial. It's dark, thick, but not pulsing. Still, it's too much for me to ignore. I press a clean dressing from my belt pouch to the wound and apply slow pressure. She doesn't flinch, doesn't whine, just watches me with those same tired amber eyes that looked into mine every day since the first evacuation. It's the only time I've felt anything close to panic in months. Not for myself, for her. I bind the wound with an adhesive wrap and check for signs of deeper laceration. Muscle looks intact. Movements limited but not impaired. I inject a low-dose antibiotic and pet her between the shoulders until her breathing evens out. Only then do I exhale. I sweep the perimeter one last time before we retreat. The UV lamp I triggered is still active, casting ghost-like shadows across the overpass. The scorched corpses of 2 infected lie just outside its reach, contorted like insects caught mid-motion. They didn't die clean. No infection does. I recover one of the bodies for sampling. With gloves on, I secure the remains in a tarp and drag it up the path toward the lab compound. The trip takes nearly an hour. I make 2 stops to reset UV mirrors along the route, using the reflection of the rising sun to keep a consistent light path across the approach tunnel. Back inside the facility, I initiate full sterilization on the lower surgical bay. The room hisses and hums as hydrogen peroxide vapor fills the chamber. Once the cycle completes, I lay the remains out on the steel slab and begin documentation. The skin shows advanced necrotic patching, but not typical of sun exposure alone. Cellular density along the dermis has changed. Denser, more fibrous, like early-stage armor plating. I take a core sample and place it under the scope. It reacts to UV light differently than prior samples. Instead of immediate blistering, the cells retract, not die, withdraw, as if protecting themselves. Tachyon rests in the corner, half asleep but watching. I speak into the recorder without looking up. Cellular contraction indicates adaptive behavior, not mutation by accident. This is learned, or past. I stop the recording. I don't like where that sentence was going. If it's past, that means there's a functional reproductive chain, a transmission of traits, either through infection or birth. Neither possibility is good. I pace for a while. I want to blame Sanders for all of this, for the breach, the stolen samples, the trap. But the truth is, I let him in. I invited him. I believed he was like me. And now, he's out there. Maybe dying, maybe worse, walking the streets as something in between. Still human, but not for long. By late afternoon, I've restored most of the perimeter defenses. I replaced the broken UV rig outside the north exit and reinforced the west barrier with an old highway floodlight powered by a fuel cell. It won't last more than a few nights, but it's something. I take the rooftop to get a wider scan. From here, I can see the river, dark and sluggish in the distance, broken only by a few pieces of collapsed bridgework and a half-submerged passenger ferry. Midtown is still, too still. That's when I notice the antenna light. It blinks. Twice. Then again, it's not mine. It's a transmission. I drop into the stairwell and sprint to the radio room, slamming the door behind me. The console is lit, receiving signal on frequency 7.850 MHz. My own band. Someone is piggybacking on my frequency. The voice that comes through is filtered, almost mechanical, a modulated signal, altered to mask origin. Zhang, if you're hearing this. Impressive. Then silence. Then, you were right about immunity, but wrong about containment. I freeze. My name, on an open frequency. The voice is distorted, but carries a cadence I recognize. It's his, Sanders. See for yourself, the voice continues. Check the tower, 10 blocks north, intersection of Grant and 54th, 3rd floor. Then nothing, just the long hiss of dead air. I think for a long time. I don't want to go. It smells like a trap. But something in the message. Not arrogance, confidence, a challenge. He's daring me to see what's next. If he really did use the variant C strain on himself and survived, he's more than a threat now. He's a prototype, a bridge between us and them. And that's something I can't let stand. I prep quickly. 2 full mags, 1 flare, 1 UV grenade, homemade, but reliable. I lock Tachyon in the secured observation chamber with water and a remote camera link. If I don't come back, the rig is set to auto-release her in 12 hours. I don't want her waiting. I take the long route out, using the southern alleyways to avoid known nests. The streets are quiet, but the kind of quiet that feels unnatural. Even the rats are gone. The wind moves differently now, hollow, like it's passing through open mouths instead of windows. By the time I reach 54th, the sun is starting to drop behind the towers. Long shadows stretch across the pavement. I move quickly. The tower is an old municipal office, 3 stories, partially burned. I climb the outer fire escape and enter through a shattered window. Dust coats the floor, cracked picture frames, scorched filing cabinets. Burned paper flakes crumble underfoot like leaves. The 3rd floor is intact, barely, and in the center of the main hallway is a chair, wooden, plain, and on it, a girl. She looks about 20, thin, pale, alive, not bound, just sitting, breathing. When she sees me, her eyes widen, but she doesn't speak. I lower the rifle halfway, but don't approach. I check her arms. No lesions, no rash. Her pupils contract properly in the dim light. Then I see it. A wire, thin as thread, running from the chair leg into the wall. I freeze. And behind me, the building moans. No, not the building. The hallway. Something moving. I raise the weapon just as the first figure lunges out of the stairwell. I fire. Once, twice. Both connect. The first collapses in a heap. The second writhes, twitching as its limbs contort backward. Not just infected, altered, smarter, faster. I grab the girl by the wrist and drag her down the hall. She resists at first, then runs. We burst into the adjacent office, slam the door, and wedge a desk against it. I try to speak. ask who she is, where she came from, but she shakes her head, hands trembling. "I thought he was helping," she says finally. "He said he was building something." Then almost whispering, "He said we'd all be clean soon." Outside the barricade, footsteps, not shambling, not random, measured, and then the voice, no longer through radio, real, just beyond the door. "See, Zhang," he says, "they don't need saving, they need leadership." I feel my stomach turn cold. You think survival is about hiding in basements, running tests, containment. But I saw the pattern. The virus isn't punishment, it's opportunity. I don't answer, I don't move, but I can hear it in his voice. He's not human anymore, not fully, not infected either. Something in between, a synthesis. "I'll let you go today," he continues. "One gift, one warning. Take her back. Study her if you like. She's clean, for now." Then footsteps again, retreating, soft, deliberate, and silence. We wait 30 minutes before unbarricading the door. The hallway is empty, the bodies are gone, the wire from the chair is severed, cut, not pulled. I lead the girl out under cover of dusk. She doesn't speak again, just walks silent, eyes cast low. Her steps are slow but steady, like someone who hasn't moved freely in days, maybe longer. She doesn't ask where we're going, doesn't comment on the carnage we pass. Burnt-out storefronts, crushed vehicles, the rotted corpses half melded into the asphalt. She keeps her eyes forward, her hands clenched in the sleeves of her jacket, and her mouth tight. I don't bring her back to the lab. It's too obvious, too vulnerable, and more than that, it's what Sanders would expect. He gave her to me like an offering, a gift wrapped in silence and confusion. He wanted her inside my walls, among my equipment, near my notes. No, I'm not giving him that. Instead, I take her to an auxiliary site I set up last winter, a hydro treatment substation off Parkside and 96th, half submerged by a collapsed reservoir pipe. Not ideal for long-term habitation, but I reinforced one of the dry rooms, set up solar power, and stored enough supplies to run a week of tests without drawing attention. It's where I go when I need to think without surveillance, my own or anyone else's. We reach it just before the last light fades. I sweep the perimeter twice. No movement, no sound, just the drip of old condensation and the faint hum of buried infrastructure still trying to work. Inside, I give her water, a protein bar, and a thermal blanket. She eats without hesitation but mechanically. No questions, just quiet obedience. After 20 minutes, I sit across from her in the observation chair, 2 battery lanterns between us, casting flickering shadows up the walls. I've already run a preliminary scan. Blood shows no active viral markers, no metabolic irregularities, no immune suppression, and yet, something feels off. "Do you remember your name?" I ask. She nods slowly. "Lena." "How long were you with him?" 3 weeks. "Did he inject you with anything?" "He said it was a treatment, said it would protect me." I watch her eyes. No dilation delay, no twitching. "Did he say what it was?" She shakes her head. "He just said, it would make me clean." I run another test. This one more invasive. Deep tissue enzyme activity, marrow sample for long-term viral imprinting. While the machine cycles, I listen, not to her, to everything else. The silence here is heavier than in the hospital, more honest. She doesn't speak again, just sits, arms wrapped around her knees, rocking gently, the blanket sliding down one shoulder. At 1:23 a.m., the analyzer beeps. The results don't make sense. There's no virus. But there's no baseline human immunoresponse either. Her antibodies are synthetic, engineered, like a tailored graft, a transplant of immunity, not a natural one. I take blood from my own arm, mix it in a controlled plate with hers, and monitor the reaction. There's no rejection. Instead, her blood consumes mine, aggressively. By 3 a.m., the girl begins to sweat, not from fever, from fear. She doesn't say it, but I can see it in the way she curls tighter, how her fingers claw at her scalp like something inside is buzzing. She shakes her head softly, muttering to herself under her breath. I approach slowly, setting the tablet aside. "What are you feeling?" I ask. "I didn't want this," she says. Then louder, eyes wide. "I didn't say yes." Her mouth trembles, and she gags. I reach for a bucket, but it's too late. She vomits onto the floor, thick bile and something black. Not blood, not food, something tar-like, fibrous. I back away. She coughs, retches again, her whole body convulsing. Her arms go rigid. Her eyes glaze. I grab the sedative. She bolts. Fast, inhumanly fast. I reach the stairwell just in time to see her slam into the lower containment gate, bouncing back, dazed. I fire the tranquilizer, one shot in the leg. She drops, twitches, then lies still, breathing shallow. I don't go near her for 10 minutes. Then I secure restraints, check vitals, and rerun diagnostics. The new blood sample pulses on its own. Pulses. That's not possible. It's reacting to oxygen, not chemically, biologically, as if it wants to live. At sunrise, I lock the substation from the outside, reinforce it with steel cord, and place 2 UV flood lamps at the hatch. Then, I return to the hospital, back to my main lab, back to where I still understand the rules. I review the footage. Her transformation wasn't complete, not yet, which means she's transitional. Like Sanders, he didn't give her a virus, he gave her himself. When I check the shortwave bands that evening, I hear static, then a pulse, then again, the voice. "Don't fight it, Zhang. You've seen what she is. She's not infected. She's the solution. But if you wait too long, she won't remember how to speak." The signal cuts. The room falls back into static and hum. The lab lights buzz overhead, their dull fluorescent flicker paling against the growing weight in my chest. I sit at the edge of the bench, staring at the receiver as if waiting for another whisper. None comes. He's right. Not about her, not about the solution, about the time, about how long I've been waiting, how long I've hidden inside protocols and lab coats and old mission parameters, as if any of it still means something. I keep working like someone will come rescue me, like someone is watching. But they're not. They never were. I've spent 2 years trying to reverse a flood by analyzing droplets. And in the meantime, the virus has changed. I review the footage from the past 30 days, then 60. Pattern recognition overlays, UV avoidance zones shrinking, pacing between light-patched areas tightening. These things aren't just reacting to shadows anymore. They're learning them, mapping them. And this morning, on the roof monitor at 0933, I caught something I can't explain. A variant B infected paused in full morning light, not fleeing, not convulsing, just standing, waiting. It stayed for 17 seconds before ducking into the alley, and it didn't burn. I rerun the footage 6 times. No anomaly, no artificial lighting, no lens error. This was real. The virus is adapting to daylight, slowly, but inevitably. It means the UV perimeter won't hold much longer. None of them will. I stop everything else. I pull open the storage crates I haven't touched in over a year. Military crates marked with black paint and biohazard seals. Inside, gas dispersal pods, UV flares, silver nitrate mines, 2 drums of ethanol stabilizer, and 1 high-yield radio transmitter. It still works. I set the timer. One last test. The plan is simple, in theory. The infected swarm to heat, blood, sound, sometimes light. But never all 3 in sequence. I'll give them all 3. My own blood, aerosolized through a dispersal mist in the dead zone of Midtown's North Rail Yard, an open gravel field surrounded by collapsed walls and blown-out subway entrances. It's the last place I saw them group in numbers. I prep the bait rig, pulse beacon, blood injector, and audio amplifier. I mix in fresh blood drawn from myself. No sedatives. Raw. I calibrate it to mimic arterial spray with heat-activated dispersal. A flare charge will trigger once the pack density exceeds 20 heat signatures. If the virus has evolved past its UV weakness, the flares won't matter. If it hasn't, this buys someone else time, assuming there's anyone else. It takes me 6 hours to get everything in place. By the time the sun begins to dip behind the skeletal skyline, I'm in position. Rooftop, 4 stories up, overlooking the gravel yard. The dispersal system is primed. The transmitter is live. I record the message. This is Lieutenant Wei Jiang, U.S. Army Biomedical Threat Unit, final broadcast, experiment number 423, subject, controlled mass exposure using active viral bait. This is a field test, not a cure, but it may point the way toward one. If you're hearing this, good luck. I set the loop. Then I load the last syringe with fresh blood, my own. It takes me nearly an hour to press the needle in. My hand doesn't shake. It just doesn't want to do it. Not because I'm afraid, though I am, but because it feels like admitting defeat, like surrendering the last illusion of control. The blood mist hisses into the dispersal unit, warm, steady. The bait is live. Movement starts within 15 minutes. First 1, then 3, then too many to count. They pour in from the cracked subway grates and sewer grills like ants through broken tile. Their forms are worse now, elongated, hunched, with jaws that sag open in a grin too wide to be human. They hesitate at the edge of the field. Then the wind shifts and they smell the blood. They charge. I watch from the rooftop, fingers on the trigger, UV flare clamped to my chest. They run straight for the mist. One of them slows, stares up. Its eyes are still intact. And that's when I realize they're not here to feed. They're here for me. The mist wasn't bait. It was a summons. I pivot, grab the rifle, backpedal toward the rooftop hatch. Too late. The stairwell behind me collapses outward in a crash of brick and rusted iron. 3 infected emerge, not shambling, but sprinting. Evolved variants, faster than anything I encountered in early stages. One leaps straight through the smoke and hits me center mass. We roll across the gravel-strewn rooftop, tangled. My weapon half slides out of reach, but I twist mid-fall and draw my sidearm. I fire once into its throat, the sound sharp and close. It stumbles backward, twitching. The second creature charges, limbs too long, too fluid. I shoot again, catching it in the side. It falls, but doesn't stop moving. Its hands scrape the concrete as it writhes toward me. The third one reaches me as I reload and clamps its teeth down into the muscle above my knee. A blinding crack of nerves follows. I don't scream. The breath just leaves my body, cold, electric. I hammer the butt of my rifle against its skull. Once, then again. I feel the bone give. It slumps. But the others keep coming. There's no end to them. I was wrong. There aren't 20. There are 50, maybe more, crawling up the scaffold rails, slamming into the perimeter gates, pouring out of maintenance shafts I'd welded shut months ago. Some have patches of clothing, some still carry IDs around twisted necks, old memories on rotting lanyards. I recognize one, a nurse from the 3rd ward. She used to bring me coffee. Her mouth hangs open, lower jaw disconnected, but she moves with purpose. I pull the pin on the UV flare and throw it high. It bursts in midair, a crackling ball of artificial sunlight. The rooftop floods with pale blue fire. Skin bubbles, howls erupt, bodies collapse. Dozens recoil, shrieking, some tumbling back off the roof. It buys me seconds. No more. I drag myself backward toward the broadcast rig. My legs useless, blood slick beneath me. I hit a tripwire rigged to a magnesium charge. One of the traps I built into the rooftop's northwest quadrant. The explosion hurls 2 more creatures into the wall. One ignites, screaming, rolling. Still, more climb. I flip a switch on the transmitter. It emits a frequency spike, low and piercing. A burst meant to confuse. It stalls them, just a moment. Their heads twitch, bodies jitter. I shoot again, hit one between the eyes, another in the gut. I throw a canister of adhesive fire compound into the entry shaft. A burst of flame spirals up. 4 creatures vanish into the plume, but they keep coming. And then I hear a new sound. A voice, clear, female. I turn, weapon raised. Behind the HVAC duct, through the smoke, She emerges. Lena, but not the same. Her walk is too still, her spine too straight. She moves like a painting come to life. Graceful, precise. Her clothes are torn, but clean. Her eyes, still her eyes. But there's no fear in them, no confusion. She sees me, and without hesitation, charges. I try to shoot. Too slow. She crashes into me with force beyond human, knocking the air from my lungs and sending the rifle skittering across the rooftop. I hit the ground hard, the breath crushed from my chest. My vision goes dim at the edges. She pins me with one hand. Her strength feels hydraulic, industrial. Then she speaks. I'm not sick. Her voice is calm, articulate. I'm not dying. I try to move, but her fingers close around my chest. I remember you, she says, but not how I should. She's crying, but it's like her body is remembering how to feel, not her mind. I didn't want this, but I didn't stop it either. I reach toward the backup flare. My fingers brush the cap. She sees. She lifts me, throws me, 10 feet into the air. I slam into the edge of the broadcast dish, the metal cracking under the impact. My shoulder dislocates. The world spins. I can't stand. I can't breathe. I crawl forward, toward the failsafe. A pressure plate tied to a UV floodlight mounted under the roof's frame. If I can get there, if I can just trigger it, I reach it. Press the plate. The light doesn't fire. It hesitates. Then flashes. Once. Then goes dark. A malfunction. Too many rainstorms. Too much corrosion. I roll onto my side, covered in ash, blood, and failure. The creatures close in again. 20 feet. 10. 3. They stop. And then he arrives. Sanders, stepping out of the stairwell, dressed in the same city uniform. No sweat. No blood. The swarm parts for him. He walks through them like Moses through the sea, calm, measured, deliberate. He reaches me, crouches, one foot resting beside my face. I spit blood. He studies me, tilting his head like I'm an artifact, a relic of something old and almost forgotten. I didn't want it to end like this for you, he says, but you chose the wall. You chose containment. You never saw the bloom for what it was. He looks out across the skyline. The sun is nearly gone, the light a weak, dusty orange. You did everything right, and still, here we are. He leans down. You thought the virus would burn itself out, that the infected would rot, but they're not dying, they're molting. His hand reaches for the flare on my vest. I grab it. He pulls my arm off. Not just the flare, the whole arm. I hear the tendons snap, the bone twist free. I don't scream. I can't. Just darkness. Cold. Shivering cold. He holds the flare like a snake, turning it in his hands. Sunlight used to mean safety. Now it means hunger. He speaks like a prophet, not a killer. You fought to preserve the species, but the species didn't want preservation. It wanted permission. Permission to become something else. He kneels beside my broken body. You were the last firewall, the final resistance, the soul in the machine. He taps the side of my head gently. You didn't fail. You fulfilled your role. He stands, raises his arms, and they're ready now. The creatures move. They don't charge. They envelop. Hands close around me, soft, clawed, burning hands. The sensation is cold, then numb. I see Lena again, standing in the back. She doesn't help. She doesn't stop it. She just watches. Then the horde takes me, and the world ends in silence. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.